Yes, and yes, it is question and answers. Yes, so many of you sent them in. Too many of you sent them in. Not all of you sent in good questions, though. Ah, see, there's the trick. You guys need to add in, like, stuff that people might actually want to hear, talk about, converse about, make them insightful questions. Some of you people ask some questions that I just like, why would it's, and try to speak them as grammatically, or send them as grammatically as correct, because some of you sent in questions I had no idea what you were trying to ask because they were so grammatically just messed up. But, that said, let's get started. I do have questions. I have a pretty good selection of questions. I don't know how long this video is going to be because of it, but I will answer the ones I have here, so let's get going. How do you feel about Loki joining the WWE? For those of you who don't know, Loki has signed with the WWE apparently, so here we go. I think it's very interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with him, how they use him. His style isn't exactly what you would expect the WWE to do, though. With them going to high definition, apparently they did want a stiffer style, so maybe that would work. I don't know. So, but if he can do well, then that's a good thing, I would say, for the other guys that are in TNA, that want to probably get into the WWE. I think he's one of the few guys that going there is going to speak a lot about that. So, and apparently the rumor is that he may be working with Rey Mysterio, and Rey Mysterio actually chose him to be the guy that's going to do a feud with him. So that's the rumor, at least. I don't know how true that is, but okay. Hey, Truthslayer, just wanted to know, what do you think is the most famous match of all time? Well, there's two that I would say, because it depends on exactly what you mean. Andre versus Hogan is probably the most famous, though probably a close second, I would imagine, as far as a match that a lot of people, even outside of wrestling, know would be Inoki versus Ali, would of course be the other one. So there is that. Would you like to see Hogan-Austin match? And if you do want to see it, who do you think should go, I'm guessing, over? Let's see, who do I think should go over? Well, I've said this before. I think Austin is the one that should go over, purely from my own personal greed and enjoyment of seeing Hogan job to Austin. But I would like to see it. I think particularly if they did some good, shoot promos against each other. If you know the whole story behind them, it makes a lot of sense. So, there you go. But a huge missed opportunity was WCW giving away Hogan vs. Sting on free TV 1995 on Nitro. This could have main evented Starrcade. It did main event Starrcade. We all know about Goldberg vs. Hogan and WWE versus the Alliance, but what are some of the other biggest missed money opportunities? In my opinion, there's only one big, giant missed money opportunity to me, and that was, well, I'll take that back. There may be two coming up. The second one may be coming up. But the first one, I would say, would definitely not doing Hogan versus Flair at WrestleMania. I think that was a big, bad thing. But the other one would be if they do not do Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker at this coming WrestleMania. I think that's another big one, because I can tell you, living here in Houston and just you talk to people in Texas, that's really the match they want to see. And if they don't put it on, I definitely think that would be the other one from a live attendance part of it. I really think that match would draw really well here. So there you go. Dear Truthslayer, my question for you is: have you seen any of the Dynamite Kid versus Tiger Mask matches from Japan? And if so, what is your opinion of it or them? I have seen just about every single one of them. They are awesome. I would say they are must-see. I know a lot of people say that, well, those matches are from the 80s. Do they hold up? Those matches are every bit as good today as they were back then, which makes you even wonder just how good those matches were back then. They were, I would say, at least 15 years ahead of their time for what they were doing. They totally changed what juniors wrestling was, even at the time. They set a standard that I really don't think anyone has really matched as far as a feud within the juniors. Very good stuff. It helped that both guys both guys basically influenced so many other people after them. So they are awesome matches. If you've never seen any of them, I would definitely check them out. I believe there are a few of them at least here on YouTube, so check those out. Everybody seems to have different feelings on the brand situation in WWE. Are you for a complete end of the brand extension, making the brands completely independent from one another, or somewhere in between, and why? I think you either have to do completely get rid of it, or you are making them completely alienated from each other and have them independent from one another. It has to be one of the things. You can't play this in-between game. It doesn't work, in my opinion. It is much better if you keep them separated. I wasn't a big fan of when they brought though it was for business reasons. I understood why they did it, of having, you know, the multi-branded pay-per-views. But I understood why they did it. I definitely don't like that I think it would be better, for example, if they, except for the big pay-per-views, if they kept the world title, if they alternated the world title matches on the pay-per-views, so that you had the two big world titles, and then you could have ECW on each show if you wanted, because it is seen as the lesser one. So, but I am for, I think they need to be completely alienated from one another. The only time I think they need to kind of come across would be the big pay-per-views, perhaps, to have promotional matches, because that would make those matches bigger, in my opinion. And of course, the draft. But other than that, that's it. Or just completely get rid of it. And that's the way I see it. Even though I think that it is better for business to keep them separated from each other. I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but that's just kind of the way I see it. Hey, Truthslayer, it seems that wrestling has gone down the toilet nowadays, and that neither WWE or TNA care about the fans. What do you think it will take for TNA to revamp their product and start giving a shit again about their fan bases? Then the money they get from its fan bases, will it be ROH getting a TV deal, or Impact moving to Monday or Friday nights or something else? Basically, I would say that they have to worry about getting the money from their fan bases, because I think that's part of the problem they are having now, to an extent, though the WWE is still doing good business. That's really, but to TNA, I would say that's probably their biggest, but I would say that that's what they have to worry mostly about. It is a business. They have to worry about getting money from its fan base, not just putting on a good product. Though I think if you put on a good product, particularly a product that the fans want, you will make money. And I think you have to, you do have to kind of skirt that line of putting on a good product and also putting on a product that will draw you money. And I think if you try to skirt that line, I think you can put on a good product without having to go completely, you know, Crash TV style to do that. So, but ROH getting a TV deal might help, because it would make maybe people would see a different style of wrestling and change that part of it. So there is that. Hey, Truthslayer, I would like to to know why the pile driver isn't used on TV anymore. Shawn Michaels used to do it all the time. Basically, the WWE didn't think it was safe. It's why you've only seen one guy in in the last few years use the shooting star press. Other than that, there you go. Okay. I don't think ROH has used the internet to their full capability as far as promoting the pay-per-views. What are some of the things you think they could do to get people's attention, more so the casual fans' attention? I completely agree. I don't think they've used the internet well. I have said this before, though I will say this. Since Gabe left, they have used the internet far better, and they've done a lot of the things such as you know, the video wires and those sort of things much more successfully, in my opinion, since Gabe left. And I really think that that's not coincidence. I really believe that I find it odd that as soon as Gabe leaves, all of a sudden Ring of Honor starts using the internet better. I just, maybe there's nothing to it, but that's just kind of the way I see it. I definitely don't think they've done well enough. I definitely think they should be at the point where even if they didn't have TV, they should be, you know, using YouTube and probably putting a 30 to 45-minute show just here on YouTube. But that's just me. Instead of just the 10-minute show that we normally get. I just read an interview with Bubba the Love Sponge show where he had JR, Hogan both on, and Hogan mentioned he would allow Hogan to get a clean win over him at WrestleMania 25. My question is, what do you think about a possibility of Austin versus Hogan at WrestleMania 25 and Hogan following through with what he said in the interviews? I would love to see Austin versus Hogan at WrestleMania 25. Do I think he would actually do the job to To Austin, fuck no, I don't. And he can say all he wants. I will believe it when I see it. Let me put it that way. Do you think that size of a wrestler really matters? Yes, I do. I do think it matters. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but a big talented guy will always outsell a small talented guy. It's just the way it is. It's not fair, but it's just the way it is. Now, that doesn't mean that guys should be doing steroids. It doesn't mean that you should force guys to be bigger, but size does matter. I am sorry. If you could use members for a WWE version of the Main Event Mafia versus a Frontline angle, who would you choose and why? Well, the Frontline or the Main Event Mafia guys would be basically Batista. This is what I do. I do Batista, Triple H, Orton, and HBK. I would not do Undertaker, and I will say that here in a minute. I would keep it to 4. If Flair was still there, it would be Flair as well. It would be those guys. It would basically be, Evolution X is basically what it would be. And then the Frontline guys would be Punk, Punk, Cena, Then I would throw Undertaker into that. I would also have Edge and Jericho, and those would be the guys. But I would have Undertaker to be kind of the guy that, hey, the young guys are right, you guys are wrong type of thing. But that's how I would do it. Hey, T-Slay, big fan. I just want to know your opinion on how many moves does a good pro wrestler need to know, and I also would like to know your favorite move as well. My favorite move as well is the moonsault. That is my favorite bar none move. I will almost always mark out, no matter how sloppy it is, but that's my favorite move. And how many moves does a guy need to know? That's probably not a fair question, because it's how many moves a guy uses. And honestly, a guy could use 4 moves, and as long as he knew how to use those 4 moves correctly and be able to do them in a way that it got the fans into his matches, then it really doesn't matter how many moves you know. So there you go. Why are so many people not giving the JBL HBK storyline a chance? The booking so far has been solid, and the story is not as far-fetched as many people are saying concerning HBK's past drug abuse and injuries. Of course, it's just a storyline, I know that, but I think people are dogging on this feud way too early. What are your thoughts? I would agree, and people will say, well, how can you say that? Easy. If you go back, and someone actually made a comment on this on one of my videos, that the match, not this last week, but the week before, where HBK basically let JBL go over him, that everyone knew that was going to happen. It wasn't surprising, and so it didn't work. It didn't. It got one of the highest ratings that Raw has gotten in a long time for the last quarter hour. Now, it went long, but it was done great. Now, the match helped. It was a very good match, and that helped as well. But the ending did keep people's attention. The fans are buying into it, and if the fans are buying into it and the ratings are increasing because of it, unlike the Main Event Mafia, I would say it's working. Now, I would say this. I don't want to see this go to WrestleMania. I think that's what we're going to see happen, even though I would much rather see Undertaker versus HBK at WrestleMania. But as far as the storyline, I do think it works, and I do think it has worked. So there you go. I was curious if you think if the WWE expanded to have more heel versus heel matches and feuds and face versus face matches and feuds, it would help them out, or help the business in general. Would it be more entertaining and draw more fans, do you think? My opinion is simple. I always had more interested in a heel versus heel feuds because it wasn't as easy to tell who was going to win the matches. And I just love the crowd reaction. Same thing with a face versus face match and the feuds. So, what do you think? I would like to see more heel versus heel matches, particularly face versus face matches. You usually want to keep to a minimum because one guy basically at some point is going to have to be more heelish than the other guy. Heel versus heel, basically both guys can be just really heel, and the cooler guy is the guy the fans are going to cheer for. And he can be as heelish as you want. So there is all that, and so I do think it works. I think you can do more heel versus heel. And I would love to see that because I think they can be funny. I think they can be very entertaining if done right. You still have to not do them all the time, but I would like to see more of them. Face versus face, you need to do once every great once in a while because it's not the same. In your opinion, what was the better winning streak, and what had more purpose and fan reaction. The Goldberg winning streak or Samoa Joe's winning streak? Without a doubt, Goldberg's winning streak, it basically turned him into a megastar. Joe's was pretty much already a star before, you know, and really didn't need the streak, where Goldberg pretty much did need the streak. So there you go with that. In your opinion, do you think wrestling has again changed, and that both WWE and TNA have gone along with the new wrestling fans as to not be trodden underfoot? No, I do not. I think that is the problem with both. I don't think they have changed, even though the fans want to change. I don't think they have, and I think that is part of the big problem with pro wrestling at the moment. Who do you think will be champion after Nigel loses his belt? So basically he's asking me, who do I think will beat Nigel? Honestly, I don't know. At this point, I guess you could say Tyler Black. It looks like, as a lot of people are behind him. But I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if somehow Bryan Danielson wound up being the guy to beat him. But you know, it could be a fluke win too. We don't know. But I'll say Tyler Black. Do you think Shelton and John Morrison should get a proper push to main event status, or is it too soon? Morrison is on that way. For those of you who don't know, apparently that's what they are doing with Morrison. That's why he is in the tag team, because they're slowly building him up. While I love Shelton, the one thing about Shelton that I will say is that he is not the best on the mic, so I would say not a main event push. I've always said that I thought Shelton would be a very good upper mid-card guy. I'm probably just under the main event guys. And maybe, you know, if he was given that chance, he'd get motivated again, then maybe he could become a main event guy. But there you go. What do you think of Jakara's talent working for Ring of Honor? I love it. It adds a bit, it brings in more guys, and it's a totally different kind of style, so I do like that. And do you think we'll ever see Eddie Kingston in ROH on a full-time basis? I would say no if you were going to put a gun to my head. Do you think Jimmy Jacobs ever has a chance of winning the ROH title sometime in the future? I do think he has a chance. I don't know if he will, but I do think he has a chance, particularly with the age of the fall. So there you go. What wrestler, whether in TNA or WWE, do you think deserves to get the biggest push right now, and why? Right now, it's a guy that is already getting a big push, but I do think he is the most deserving to get the push. And I would say, well, I won't say that. I was going to say Randy Orton. He's already getting a push. But if I was going to say a guy that I think needs to get a bigger push than what he's getting, that's a good question. No, I'm going to say Randy Orton, because I think Randy Orton is in line. It should probably get a pretty massive push, even though he's a dick and, you know, doesn't and has a tendency to screw up. But you know, who do you think is the bigger star after leaving ROH? Samoa Joe from TNA or CM Punk from WWE? To me, it's Joe. I would imagine most casual fans would say Punk, just because they know who Punk is over Joe. Do you think that wrestling shows should return to the way they used to be in the 80s and 90s? Not necessarily in the cartoonish aspect, but more in the actual wrestling context, like having squash matches over no-name jobbers, promos, hyping pay-per-views, and maybe 2 real matches rather than filling it with long backstage segments and giving away big matches for free. I would say that the thing with the squash matches is this, that it has shown, and it's been shown this probably since the end of the Monday Night Wars, because WWE has tried that they'll throw squash matches out for a while and never do good in the ratings. The fans always get bored with them. They don't like them. It's unfortunate, but that's probably, squash matches were probably, other than ECW, according to Paul Heyman, the other thing that pretty much went the way of the dodo, thanks to the Monday Night Wars. So there you go. I do think they can be used, but I just don't think fans would buy into seeing them all the time. So, have you seen The Wrestler, the movie, I guess? And what did you think? I did see it. I thought it was very good. I thought Mickey Rourke was excellent in it. I didn't like the movie as much as a lot of other people did. I'm not exactly sure why. It wasn't because it was kind of a downer movie, because I usually don't mind that. But hey, but there was just something about it I didn't like as much as a lot of other people did. But Mickey Rourke was very good in it, and it is a very, very good movie. I'd recommend anybody checking it out. Hey Truthslayer, I have been subscribed to you for about a year, and I decided to go back and look at your first videos, hoping to see a video with your thoughts on the death of Benoit. I got to the end of the first video, was titled Back from the Abyss. It appears your original account was hacked, and yes it was, and destroyed. Can I just say, I thought your return video was class and funny. Do you ever find out the culprits? No, I did not. There was a lot of speculation exactly who did it, but nobody ever came forward about who did it. And did you ever make a video about Benoit? Yes, I did. I made a video about Benoit that night. I never made another one because I didn't think it was necessary. But by the time I made the video, it was pretty obvious that things may not be exactly what we thought they were. And the whole video was pretty much me talking about that don't jump to conclusions, wait till we find everything out, which we eventually did, and make your conclusions then. And to basically remember, much like Chris Jericho has often said, and many other people have often said, to remember the Chris Benoit that they knew, not the Chris Benoit that wound up that night, and that everybody else in the world found out about. So there you go. Okay, hey, I was just wondering about your thoughts were on Hulk Hogan. I have heard people say they don't like him because, like Triple H, he also had backstage drama and controversy. Just wanted to know your thoughts. As far as backstage stuff, I think Hulk Hogan was a dick, particularly in WCW. However, you can't deny the guy was maybe the biggest name in the history of pro wrestling, and as a lot of people have said, the Babe Ruth of pro wrestling. If you know, Hulk Hogan is the Babe Ruth, Ric Flair was the Ty Cobb, and very much like that. So there you go. How would you have booked the NWO versus the Four Horsemen feud? What I would have done is kind of what WCW done, is where I would have NWO basically trounce WCW, particularly in War Games, and then after War Games, have them continue to trounce and get all the titles. And then finally, WCW has to go to J.J. Dillon at the time, who was supposed to be the head of WCW, I guess, or had a head part, and basically say, please reform, or the locker room go to them and say, please reform the Horsemen. They're the only thing that can stop the NWO. And basically kind of do how they did it, where if you bring us back, it won't be a good thing. Bringing us back is you're making a deal with the devil. Have them come back, have them beat the NWO, and have them be the ones to give the NWO the first defeat, and then have the NWO, you know, come back and particularly at War Games, and then have the NWO kind of disband a little bit, have it look like they were going to fall apart, then have them come back together, but not till after the Horsemen. Because part of the deal was that the Horsemen now got to go after all the titles, have them win all the titles. And then, as the faces, now the NWO is going to come back and try to take all the titles from the Horsemen and have the feud go more along that way. That's how I would have done it. That's how I would have said I would have done it, even back then. What single event do you think most contributed to the most to ECW closing? Well, first of all, it was the money issue, and then them going to TNN. Financially, that is without a doubt what caused them to go out of business, as a lot of people have noted. Now, I would also state that Raven leaving, in my opinion, was a big deal and hurt ECW probably more than a lot of people think. Because to me, even though Tommy Dreamer did end up beating Raven, he never beat Raven for the championship. And I think that, especially on the fact that he didn't beat Raven for the championship on a pay-per-view, did hurt ECW to some extent, because they really didn't have that finishing blow to that feud that they probably really needed. So I think that also hurt. Are all the DVDs, and this is a question I get asked a lot, on those shelves behind you, or are they just books, or both? There are, I think, 3 books on the shelf behind me. No, 2 books. There are 5 videotapes. Everything else you see behind me is a DVD. And there are DVDs that do not even fit on that shelf that are scattered elsewhere. So, there you go. And they're not all wrestling DVDs. Most of them are movies, and then half the wrestling DVDs are scattered elsewhere because they won't fit on the shelves. So, there you go. I've never been to a TNA or WWE house show. Are all the matches open and shut? Do the main events try to set up a small storyline for that night only? Pretty much they're open and shut. Maybe they'll continue storylines that are already going on, but for most part, it's just, you know, you go out there, you see guys wrestle. Usually house shows, you get better matches because they're pretty much, they're not TV matches. They pretty much want to send everyone home happy, and the shows are usually a bit better than what you would see, such as on a SmackDown or a Raw. Maybe not necessarily a pay-per-view, but they're usually a little better. My question is, do you think that announcing is somewhere all the companies could be improved? Without a doubt. There is virtually very few guys, and that includes every company with the exception of, and there's only one exception I would say to this, with the exception of Chikara. That's right. I've been talking to indies that I think the announcing is up where it should be. To me, you have, if you look at the WWE, you've really only got maybe three guys total, 3 or 4. You could really got 4 guys total, which would be Stryker, Taz, JR, and King, who are good as far as announcers go. I don't think anyone else is, except for Joey Styles, who's not announcing, so that doesn't matter. Mike Tenay and Don West, everyone knows about the deal with them. I don't think the ROH guys are too good. There's really no one I've ever heard on indies. I know a lot of people say the PWG guys, but I'm not real big on the PWG guys myself. But the Chikara commentaries are usually very good and very entertaining, and so I would give them props for that. Unless you want to talk about, you know, the Japanese commentators, who I have no idea what they're doing other than just freaking out over moves and stuff like that, which is always kind of fun to hear because you don't know what they're talking about. But anyways, that is that. We got through this, boys and girls. Anyways, if I didn't answer your question, or if you have a question, just send it. Again, mail it to me. Do not put it in the comment section. Mail it to me here on YouTube. If I like it, I will answer it, or if I think it's a good question, please try to keep them simple. Try to make it a good question, and try to make it to where I can understand what you're trying to ask. That is all that I ask. And try to keep it to one question, please. I know sometimes that's difficult, and I do understand that, but try to keep it to one question. Anyways, I'm out. Have a good one. Later.